Human Immunity by me, Lauren Armstrong. Infectious diseases typically have one of four main causes: bacteria, which is single-celled organisms such as strep throat or UTIs; viruses are smaller than bacteria and rely on hosts for reproduction, such as colds; fungi are responsible for many surface skin diseases such as athlete's foot; and parasites are causes of conditions such as malaria. The first line of defense is barriers to infection. The skin consists of three major layers. The epidermis is the outermost layer, the dermis, which lies underneath the epidermis, and the subcutaneous layer forms the deepest section. The epidermis provides a mechanical barrier against the environment in the form of a waterproof protective coating. It replaces itself on a 28-day cycle. The epidermis prevents penetration of microbial organisms, prevents penetration of chemical irritants, prevents penetration of toxins, absorbs and blocks solar and ionized radiation, and inhibits water loss. And this is a diagram of the layers of the skin: the epidermis, the dermis, and the subcutaneous tissue. Mucous membrane lines the surface of many areas of the body, including the eyes, ears, nose, sinus, mouth, and throat, coated with secretions that fight microorganisms and form an effective defense against the infections. For examples, our eyes will produce tears that will attack bacteria. The mucous membranes prevents infectious agents and pathogens from invading the body whilst also allowing nutrients through. Urinary tract. The urinary tract has several effective barriers to infection. For example, the blood is protected by the urethra. It effectively washes pathogens out. In females, it is more common to experience a UTI, as urethra is shorter than in males. However, when blood flushes, it flushes out any bacteria. And this shows the urethra here. Second line of defense is the injury to the skin or inflammation will often cause an inflammatory response. Primary physical effect is that the effective inflammatory response is for blood circulation to increase around the infected or affected area. The blood vessels around the site dilate, allowing increased blood flow to the area, resulting in inflammation. Developing gaps, cell walls in the cells surrounding the infected area develop gaps, allowing the immune response blood cells to pass. Increased blood flow results in an increase in the strength of the immune system's response in the affected area. The feeling of the immune system response at the site of infection, the different types of cells congregate again, which in turn adds to the inflammation of the area. Body heat. In the infected area, there will be an increase in body heat, which can have an antibiotic effect. The main symptoms of the inflammatory response are the tissues in the affected area take on a red coloration and an area of warm to touch. Affected area becomes swollen and the affected area is painful because of the inflammation. The second line of defense will include responses such as inflammation, a physiological response to increase of the white blood cells count at the site of infection; fever with an increase in core body temperature aimed at inhibiting bacterial growth and making the immune cells work faster; phagocytes, large white blood cells that engulf the foreign material. Complement proteins contribute to the breakdown and ultimate removal of pathogens from the body. Cytokines, small proteins that inhibit the reproduction of viruses as well as having other functions. Pathogenesis. This is the engulfing and destroying the damaged, defective of invasive cells. When inflammation occurs, monocytes have a series of changes to become macrophages and target cells. Cellular enzymes inside the macrophages act as scavengers and remove dead or necrotic cells. Macrophages, these are an important part of the immune system. They are formed in response to either an infection or accumulation of damaged or dead cells. These are specialized cells that recognize, engulf, and destroy target cells. And this is a macrophages here. Neutrophils, these are the most abundant white blood cell and are the major defense against past-forming bacteria. They can move through blood vessels and are usually the first cells to arrive at the site of inflammation or infection. Pathogens and antigens. A pathogen is an infectious agent, essentially a microbe, that can cause an immune response. Pathogens can be bacteria or viruses, but can also be protozoans and fungi. Antigens are the parts of the pathogen that tell your body it's being attacked. They are part of the pathogen that cause the immune response in the body. They can be the following: protein, carbohydrates, nucleic acid, and fat. Acquired immunity is not present at birth, but instead learned. As a person is exposed to the natural environment, the body's immune system encounters antigens. Acquired immunity is a learned response from the body's immune system to determine the best way to attack each antigen. Artificially acquired immunity can be conferred by two mechanisms, actively and passively. Actively is when the body is exposed to a foreign antigen in a vaccine, where passively is introduced preformed antibodies in the body. Leukocytes are white blood cells and are a key part of the immune system. White blood cells are 5 different types of leukocytes, and all are produced in the bone marrow. Leukocytes include the following: neutrophils, level between 2,000 and 7,500 cells per millimeter free of blood, and they attach to the walls of the blood vessels, which are the effect of attempting to block the access of germs through a cut. Lymphocytes have a large nucleus located within a small amount of cytoplasm, around 1,300 to 4,000 lymphocytes per millimeter free of blood. They make antibodies which help heal with disease resistance. Monocytes, the largest type of white blood cells, and are less common, about 200 to 800 monocytes per millimeter free of blood. They turn into macrophages. When they exit the bloodstream, this then means they eat any type of dead cell in the body. Eosinophils are rare to be seen in the bloodstream. About 40 to 400 cells per millimeter free of blood have large granules that help in cellular functions and important cells in the terms of allergies. Basophils, these are the rarest of the white blood cells, and there are only 0 to 100 cells per millimeter free. Secrete anticoagulants that act as against hypersensitivity reactions in the bloodstream. The acquired immune system is responsible for the destruction of pathogens once they have entered the body. The first exposure to a pathogen, the acquired immune system learns how to attack and destroy the pathogen. The acquired immune system is first line ineffective against infections. It has not come across, however, once the acquired immune system created a a protective response can be made more quickly. Lymphocytes and T cells. There are 2 types of lymphocytes of the acquired immune system: T cells and B cells. T cells account for about 80% of all lymphocytes. There are 3 types: cytotoxic T cells, suppressor T cells, and helper T cells. T cells function through the release of certain substances into the blood. They have a number of roles: signaling for growth and activation of B cells, activation of cells that can eat for foreign substances, stimulation of cytotoxic T cells during a viral infection, and signaling growth in cells. T cells. T cells cannot detect in foreign substances by themselves and require assistance from antigen-presenting cells. These will break down the foreign substance and present part of it to the T cells so that it can mount for a response. Once the response is activated, a large amount of T cells are released into the bloodstream. Helper T cells aid the immune system and serve as a major regulator of virtually all immune functions within the body through the release of lymphocytes, which stimulate the other types of T cells to grow and attack. Cytotoxic T cells act to defend the body against viruses that reject tissue and grafts, and also form the response to certain tumours, require activation APCs, and rely on the presence of helper T cells, create a protein called perforin, which perforate infected cells by punching holes in them. Suppressor T cells are capable of suppressing the functions of both helper and cytotoxic T cells. Do this in order to regulate the other T cells and immune system. B cells maturation takes place in the bone marrow. They play two major roles in terms of the immune response: antibody production and presenting antigens to T cells and providing for T cell activation. Plasma cells are B cells that produce and secrete a single antibody type. Memory B cells can also be found after stimulation. These cells migrate to the lymph nodes where they remain ready for further activation. And this shows the B cells. Immunoglobulins, antibodies, are proteins that are bound to antigens. Antibodies have many uses within the body, including targeting infection, recruitment of immune cells, neutralization of toxins, and removal of antigens. The typical immunoglobulin is made up of 4 chains. Immunoglobulin G, one of the major activators of the complement pathway. The IgG molecules is able to stimulate a direct attack on anything that is recognized as foreign, transfer across the placenta from the other to the fetus. Hemoglobin A plays an important role in cellular defense of the soft, moist surface of the body. A lack of IgA often causes major infections. Immunoglobulin B, different structure than others, comprises 5 normal immunoglobulins joined at the bases. Immunoglobulin E is only present in low levels in a healthy person. The level increases significantly as a response to parasitic, infectious, and allergic reactions. Immunoglobulin D is relatively uncommon and the function of the immune system remains unknown. Recognizing self and non-self. The immune system achieves this goal through the mechanisms of the antigens. The nature of antigens allow the immune system to distinguish between self and non-self, therefore enabling only the non-self to be attacked. MHCI's molecules are expressed on the surface of all nucleated cells. They act as an early warning system to the immune system. If the cell contains foreign proteins, it will degrade these proteins into fragments and display these fragments of this MHCI on the cell surface. MHCII only present in certain cells of the immune system as opposed to all nucleated cells. These act as an extracellular presentation mechanism. Sensitivities. Human immune system is very complex and more than we have indicated, thus fair in terms of the response to antigens and pathogens, apparent from the immune system not having the same level of sensitivity to all antigens. Hypersensitivity describes an abnormal immune reaction that is caused by an immune response to repeated exposure to the same antigen. Autoimmunity is the response of the adaptive immune system to self-antigens that occur when mechanisms of self-tolerance fail. Failure of self-tolerance. The immune system can produce different cell types, each of which can respond to different and specific foreign antigens. These rogue cells of their products can then react against self-antigens. This is the basis of autoimmune disease. Hypersensitivity diseases are grouped into 4 major categories: immediate hypersensitivity, antibody-mediated hypersensitivity, immune complex-mediated hypersensitivity, and cell-mediated hypersensitivity. Transplantation is transferring cells, tissues, or organs from one site to another. The immune system has developed elaborate and effective mechanisms to combat foreign agents. This happens with transplanted organs, which are recognized by foreign by the recipient's immune system. The receiving person's immune system of an organ may recognize that this is foreign. It occurs because the antigens of the cells of the organs are different and therefore is recognized as being non-self. Rejection of transplanted organs. Tissue typing ensures that the organ or tissue is as similar as possible to the tissues of the recipient. Monoclonal antibodies can be used during and after surgery to get rid of the specific T cells which cause the rejection of the organ. 3 types of rejection. Hyperacute rejection occurs a few minutes after the transplant when the antigens are completely unmatched. Acute rejection may occur at any time from the first week after the transplant to the next 3 months after, and chronic rejection can take place after over many years. Autoimmune diseases. If you have an autoimmune disease that you have, your immune system will mistakenly attack healthy cells in your body. One example of an autoimmune disease is Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is where your body's immune system attacks itself and can cause symptoms such as numbness and weakness of the feet, hands, and limbs. It may also cause pain and causes problems with balance and coordination. The cause of Guillain-Barré syndrome is thought to be the immune system which starts to attack the damaged nerves, and this is the autoimmune disease. Another example of an autoimmune disease is asthma, where the main symptoms include wheezing and shortness of breath. Asthma is caused by inflammation of the tubes that carry air in and out of the lungs. There are sometimes triggers that make these symptoms worse, such as allergies or smoke. The classic signs of autoimmune disease is inflammation, which can cause redness, heat, pain, and swelling. The most common organs and tissues affected are joints, muscles, skin, and red blood cells. When you have an autoimmune disease, your body produces antibodies against some of your other allergies. Allergies are split into 2 broad categories: IgE-mediated and non-IgE-mediated. In IgE-mediated allergies, the immune system produces excessive amounts of IgE antibodies that are specific to the given allergen, and some symptoms include runny nose, hives, breathing difficulties, and nausea. Natural active immunity. There are 2 types of active immunity: active natural immunity and active artificially induced immunity. Natural active immunity is a type of immunity that can develop from being exposed to the pathogen that causes a specific disease. For example, a type of bacteria or virus. The T cells in the blood will attach to the pathogen and even present the pathogen to the B cells in the bloodstream. B cells can create antibodies to kill the pathogen. An example is chickenpox. Once the virus then causes chickenpox enters your body, your immune system creates an antibody to attack the virus. Artificially induced active immunity. This involves an individual being artificially and intentionally exposed to foreign antigens in order to generate a protective immune system. This can be through vaccines. Natural passive immunity. In this process, antibodies are transferred from one person to another through natural means, such as prenatal interactions between mother and child. Artificially passive immunity. This is protection acquired by giving a person injection or transfusion of antibodies made by someone else. Vaccination involves exposure of the body's immune system to a weakened or harmless version of a pathogen in order to stimulate white blood cells to produce antibodies. Primary response is when a pathogen is encountered, but the first time it takes time for the antigen to be identified to the B lymphocytes and for the appropriate antibody to be produced by the plasma cells. Vaccines and immunological memory. Vaccines are used to initiate the production of memory cells without causing the infection. Live vaccines. These are from disease-causing virus or bacteria. The benefits of vaccination is that immunization and vaccinations help protect against serious diseases. Immunizations have helped some diseases to become completely eradicated, such as smallpox, which has been eradicated in 1979, and in Europe has been polio-free since 2002. Herd immunity is when a high percentage of the population is vaccinated. It is more difficult for contagious diseases to spread. Those who are vaccinated means the disease will quickly disappear without having a widespread effect. Vaccination programs is that there's been a number of real or perceived health scares which link between certain vaccinations and developmental autism.